Namaste, good morning. Episode 2 in season 2. We'll continue with the higher three angas, three parts, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi of Patanjali, where it's a very excellent treatise on mind. Okay, what you call the psyche. Okay, it's a Western word, maybe Greek, Latin, whatever, I don't know. Psychology is the study of mind. So we said you can unleash the power of mind with the purified biophysical and bio-life entity that you are, okay? Which means from head to foot. The biophysical bio-life is head to foot, from here to there. That's first level of purification that happens. And now with mind enabled with that, now we create into Chitta Shuddhi. Okay. So he says when the mind operates, okay, it can operate with right knowledge, it can operate with wrong knowledge of what you are, what the world is, or what is absolute truth. We don't know what, you need to get the right knowledge of that, is what we say. Verbal delusion. Okay. Verbal delusion is words do not reflect the image of the reality. That means you use some word, somewhere, approximation, and even colloquial words. Many times colloquial words don't exactly represent what was the original meaning of that word. They give a current transactional understanding. Okay? But then, every word, okay, has a etymological basis. If you go to the language, be it, I know at least about Tamil and Sanskrit I can talk about, old languages in this world. There's an etymological balance. You have to go back to the nirukta, as they say in Sanskrit. Okay. Panini wrote the first grammar. Patanjali himself wrote an expansion to Panini's grammar. Okay. Going back to etymology, and then it goes to, when it comes to languages, it talks about going back to the sound itself, sound of Shiva's Damru, Shiva Sutra or Maheshwara Sutra, Shiva Sutra or Maheshwara Sutra, as we say. Okay, Ayun, Rilak, I, this goes on. These alphabets and consonants, they are grouped in a certain way in the sutra. And with that sutra seems to have evolved from the Shiva's Damru. And that sutra becomes swaras and vyanjans, okay, alphabets and consonants, you may say, vowels and consonants, okay. A, I, I, U, up to Am, and then Kaka, Kiki, Kuku, okay, Kaka, Ga, Ga, all these are all basic syllables. And from which the words are built, and from words sentences are built, and from sentences you have the language. Okay. So in the entire grammar, etymology plays a big role. And when you use a word in a colloquial context, vyavaharika, without knowing that, you are not likely to have the absolute knowledge. Particularly, I can say about Sanskrit and Tamil, and to my understanding, even Latin. Okay, because many of the roots of many of the Indo-Germanic and Indo-Aryan languages will go back to Latin. Okay. So if you look at linguistics, okay, there's a big study on linguistics itself, how languages got formed and what was the origins, and etc., etc. Okay. So when you use languages loosely, okay, then it becomes verbal delusion. And then verbal delusion is what is creating your understanding. And he says that's a very wrong way to understand. So language can become while we think language is an enabler in communication, language can become an obstacle in knowing the absolute truth. Okay. So right knowledge, you can operate your mind with your right knowledge. You can operate your mind with wrong knowledge. You can operate your mind with verbal delusion. Okay. And the mind operates in sleep. In sleep, what does it do? Particularly in deep sleep, The mind is looking at nothingness, he says. Okay, sleep. What is the nature of mind when you are sleeping? So, nature of mind when the thoughts are working has two parts. One is in the wakeful state, there are thoughts which you can express. In the dreaming states, there are thoughts that you experience. Okay, and in deep sleep states, the mind is looking at nothingness. That's what he says. And the fifth state is memory. Memory means ability to recall. Okay, ability to recall. Something is stored so that you can recall. One ability to recall an object. When I see an object, I can recognize that object because I have an image there, and that image is the memory. And the mind works to recall the object based on its memory. So, right knowledge, wrong knowledge, verbal delusion, sleep, and memory are 5 ways or directions or bases on which the mind works. Is another way of research that he has done and expressed. And when it comes to the ultimate yoga, how to use that, okay, when you get mastery over the mind and are able to stop this, several modes and states of mind that it works does not work. You are not in deep sleep. You are not experiencing nothingness. You are experiencing something. The mind is seeing something. That is absolute truth. What is the mind seeing? But by the time the mind, the character of the mind, the properties, the character, the tonality, texture, the quality of the mind has changed so much, okay, that you don't no longer say that was the mind with which I started. I started with that mind, but it's gone. The whole nature has changed. Okay. So, in a sense, what we say in Vedas or Vedanta also, mind has the capability to become intellect, intellect has the capability to become intuition, intuition has the capability to become consciousness, consciousness capability to become Atma. Okay. Manas, Buddhi, Medha, Prajna. Medha is intuitiveness of some kind of a direct, it's a tipping point between inference and direct perception. Intellect is still inference. You are having a mental model. You have a model of this is what truth is, and you're trying to deal with that. Okay, there is no direct perception of the truth. When the mind has a direct perception of the truth without the assistance of all these perceptions, as organs of perception, jnanendriyas, there's a transition period. There's a tipping point when the intellect becomes intuition. Intuition is a kind of direct perception, the early stage of direct perception. Now that consolidates, that becomes consciousness. Consciousness is an evolved mind which has the ability to do direct perception of everything in the cosmos and beyond. And further purification, consciousness is Atma. Like mind is consciousness, mind is intellect, intellect is intuition, intuition is consciousness, consciousness is Atma. Stages of evolution of consciousness to Atma. Manas, Buddhi, Medha, Prajna. Prajna is still flowing of consciousness, Chaitanya. Okay. But then Atma is a separate entity. And the first tool of Atma is Prajna, consciousness. So that's why Atma is called Chit Swarupa. Atma is not Chid. Atma is Chit Swarupa. In the form of Chid, form of consciousness. Consciousness becomes Medha, Medha becomes intellect, intellect becomes Manas. In a normal body which is not purified. In the Panchabhuta body, and the Panchabhuta is mixed in a hard fashion like this, Atma has moved from the state of operating as consciousness to Meda. Meda is intuition, wisdom, whatever. Intellect to simply mind. And in this mind, it just works on imagination, emotions. These are the two ways it works. Either it reacts based on imagination, assumptions, presumptions, and all that stuff, or it just reacts based on emotions. I feel happy, therefore I do it. I don't feel happy, therefore I don't do it. Okay. So, mind is the lowest form of expression of Atma in the Panchabhuta Sharir. So, this is one Vedic, Vedantic way of dealing and explaining mind. Patanjali, you can relate to that, what I told you. Aurobindo, in his philosophy, Aurobindo's philosophy, has dealt with it in great detail. Difficult to understand, but if you understood these two, then go back to Aurobindo and trying to understand, you may be able to understand. He talks about how a mind becomes an overmind and overmind becomes a supermind. Okay. But in this process, when the mind is evolving, with the help of a purified body and a very life-filled body, okay, with prana flowing through without any interference, with intensive prana force, life force, in a purified Panchabhuta Sharir, which is sort of thinned. Panchabhuta, the thinner has been thinned. I used these words in season 1, so if you have seen season 1, you can relate to that. Okay. Then the whole being, okay, it has transformed to a large extent. Okay, and there in that transformatory process, psychosomatic transformatory process, you get what are called as psychic powers. I mean, when I say psychic powers, superhuman powers with the aid of the mind, intellect, intuition, consciousness root. But then you must understand that that can only happen with the purified body and therefore improved Panchabhuta, thinned Panchabhuta, which has become, let's say, Tanmatra in the Sukshma Sharir. And we'll talk about Karana Sharir later. That's another level, another step. Okay. So there are some powers that you get which are not normally human. Okay. There are different kind of psychic powers that you get. And there are different psychic powers. Can be looked at from two parts. One is ability to know, direct perception, which is what we talk about. Okay, from a Jnana Marga point of view and knowledge system point of view. But because that power of knowledge, of direct perception is improving, which in Vedic thing is called Brahma Teja Abhivarti. Okay. And that has happened because of enabling your control on the Panchabhuta. Your ability to control the Panchabhuta also improves. That means you are also able to control the matter energy part of yourself and the world. Look, that means your Jnana Shakti is improving, your Kriya Shakti is also improving. Power to know and power to do, both are improving. That is the whole purificatory yogic process. As you purify yourself, you get more powers to deal with matter energy on the Bhautik or Panchabhuta domain. And also in terms of mind, which is Jnana Shakti. So Jnana Shakti is improving, Kriya Shakti is improving. I told you that, right? Jnana Shakti is improving, Kriya Shakti is improving. So it's just not psychic powers, it's psychosomatic powers, ability to deal with matter. That's why somebody is able to create a Rudraksha from a thin air or a Linga from a thin air or a Vibhuti from a thin air. This is not possible for 99.99% of people, but that's a science. Jnana Shakti improving, I can read into others' mind. The Shakta Marga deals more with the power to do, Shakti, Kriya Shakti. But that power to do is also accompanied by a power to know. Because if you don't know about it, you can't do anything about it. So knowledge is, let's say, knowledge and know-how is a prerequisite for doing it. And that seems to evolve. And that evolution goes at various levels. Ability to control my body, ability to control the environment around me, ability to be in control of the solar system, ability to be controlling the entire cosmos. Ability to know cosmic spaces, ability to know other beings, other life forms, ability to understand other life forms, ability to deal with other life forms. This seems to enhance. So, the ability to know, have the know-how, and ability to do, have the skills to do, are together called Vidya. I am introducing a new term called Vidya. Okay. Vidya is not just education. It is just not literacy. It is ability to know about something. You have the know-how, Jnana Shakti, and have the requisite skill to make it happen, which is Kriya Shakti. So Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti together to accomplish something is called Vidya. If you have to drive a car or a cycle, you know how to drive it and you can drive it. You can accomplish driving. So that is Vidya. If I theoretically talk about it, but I don't have the skill to do it, this is just knowledge. That's not Vidya. Please understand. People generally say Vidya is knowledge only. No, Vidya is Jnana Shakti plus Kriya Shakti, both, so that you can show it, you can make it happen. The direct perception of everything beyond the 5 perception senses. Okay. And along with direct perception, the superhuman powers of ability to do without using your 5 karmendriyas to make it happen. It's a different order of things. Okay. So it's a whole Vidya which is in the normal sense of how you deal with this world transactionally day to day. And there's Mahavidya. Mahavidya includes how do I know and deal with the cosmos itself. So Maharshis, Yogis, Munis are all of that category who have the Mahavidya. Maha comes with Mahat Loka, which is cosmos. They deal with Mahavidya. So the Shakta Marga most of the Shakta Marga deals with Mahavidya. Dharana, Dhyana, Samyama deals with how mind can enable Mahavidya. So in Hinduism, hardcore Hindus who are looking at that level, the Mahavidya is given more respect and regard, whether they understand it or not. Whether the other man who claims to have the Mahavidya is actually true to his claim, okay, is only known when he does something with his knowledge. Otherwise, his claim is a claim, that's all. So we deal with Vidya, which is for transactional day-to-day living. We deal with Mahavidya, with your ability to deal with the entire cosmos, or at least spaces, aspects of this cosmos. Knowing them and ability to deal with them, work on them, and accomplish something, Mahavidyas. There are at least 10 important Mahavidyas that we have, which is the Dasha Mahavidyas. Okay, I will deal with them a little later. Modern science is also a kind of Mahavidya, but for example, the ability to deal with artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics goes deeper into quantum science. Okay, understanding of intelligence, how to make it happen. But the difference between the Hindu Mahavidya and Science Mahavidya is that in Science Mahavidya, they don't make it happen in themselves. They make it with outside the world. Okay. So, science is a kind of Mahavidya, but we don't classify that as Mahavidya, because in the Mahavidya, the instrument that you use to express that Mahavidya is your body itself. You don't create a robotics. You don't create an artificial intelligence, machine learning stuff. Okay. But that's big because we understand cosmos in great detail, modern science, and we are able to apply that to create something outside, not inside. So that's the difference between the Mahavidyas of Hinduism and the modern sciences Mahavidya. With this introduction of the power of the mind and how it is linked to Nadi Shuddhi and Bhuta Shuddhi, we will move to Chitta Shuddhi. Chitta Shuddhi means once you understand this, once you transcend yourself into the ability to know cosmic spaces, cosmic phenomena, and ability to deal with that, Mahavidya, you should not get trapped there. That's not the end. There's something more. You can't, when individual consciousness is moved to cosmic consciousness, that's not the end. You have to go to Atma and Paramatma. So, the psychic powers, the powers of different Shaktis, Anima Shakti, Garima Shakti, the Ashtamaha Siddhis, etc., Shaktis, etc., that we call about, is more in the cosmic domain. Okay, we have to transcend even that. But the root is that you will probably get led into one of the forms of Mahavidya in terms of direct perceptions, ability to directly perceive and directly do something with cosmic spaces, with this body. But you should not get trapped there because there's more to go. You have to go more. With that caveat of the Vidyas and the psychic powers and superhuman powers, as an intermediate state of your evolution, we'll stop here and then move on to looking at some of these psychic powers that everyone talks about. Okay, thanks.